Lisa Martinez rubbed her tired eyes and stared at the screens in front of her. She had been working the night shift at the Deep Space Monitoring Station for 6 months now. Most nights were quiet, with only the usual background noise from distant stars and planets. But tonight was different. A strange signal was coming through the receivers. It was not like anything she had heard before. The signal was weak but steady, and it seemed to be coming from somewhere very far away. Lisa adjusted the controls and tried to make the signal clearer. "Computer, run analysis on incoming transmission," she said to the station's main system. The computer beeped and showed her the results. The signal was definitely artificial, not natural space noise. Someone or something was trying to communicate. Lisa felt her heart beat faster. This could be the first contact with alien life the humans had been waiting for. She pressed the emergency button that would wake up Dr. Alan Peterson, the station's language expert. Within minutes, Peterson came. Running into the communications room, still putting on his uniform jacket. "What do we have, Lisa?" Peterson asked, looking at the displays. "Unknown transmission, sir. It's definitely not human, and the computer says it's using some kind of mathematical pattern to organize the sounds," Lisa replied. Peterson sat down at his workstation and began running the signal through his translation programs. For 2 hours, he worked with the computer to break down the alien message. Lisa watched nervously as lines of text appeared and disappeared on his screen. Finally, Peterson leaned back in his chair with a shocked expression on his face. "Lisa, get Admiral Harrison on the emergency line right now," he said quietly. "What does it say, sir?" Lisa asked. Doc Peterson looked at her with serious eyes. "It's a distress call, and it's bad. Admiral Jake Harrison arrived at the monitoring station 3 hours later with a team of military analysts. He was a tall man with gray hair and calm eyes that had seen many battles. Peterson had sent him a preliminary report, but Harrison wanted to hear the full translation himself. "Play it again, Doctor," Harrison said. Peterson pressed a button, and the alien voice filled the room. It sounded musical but sad, like someone singing a funeral song. After a few minutes, Peterson stopped the recording. "The speakers call themselves the Villani," Peterson explained. "They live in a star system about 40 light years from here. They're asking for help from anyone who can hear them." "Help with what?" Harrison asked. Peterson pulled up images on the main screen. They showed burning cities on a blue-green planet with large dark ships in orbit around it. Their world is being attacked by something called the Krillian Empire. According to the message, the Krillians showed up 6 months ago and demanded complete surrender. What happened when the Villani refused? Harrison asked, though he already suspected the answer. The Krillians started destroying their cities one by one. They're taking prisoners and using them as slave workers. The Villani estimate that millions of their people are already dead or captured. Harrison studied the images carefully. The Villani cities looked peaceful and beautiful, with tall spires and green arcs. The attacking ships were dark and angular, designed for war. It reminded him of pictures from Earth's own history, when stronger nations attacked weaker ones. "Why are they calling us specifically?" Harrison asked. Peterson switched to another part of the message. "This is the interesting part. They've heard stories about humans from other alien traders. They call us Deathworld survivors because we come from such a dangerous planet. They think we might be strong enough to help them fight the Krillians." Lisa spoke up from her station. "Sir, there's more to the message. They're sending coordinates to their home system and detailed information about the Krillian fleet." Harrison walked over to look at Lisa's screen. The tactical information was impressive. The Villani had managed to scan the enemy ships and count their weapons. They were sharing everything they knew, hoping someone would come to help them. "How many Krillian ships are we talking about?" Harrison asked. "Over 200, sir," Lisa replied. "Big ones, too." much larger than our current fleet ships. Peterson added more bad news. The Krillians have been doing this for a long time. The message mentions dozens of other worlds they've conquered over the past century. They have experience fighting space battles. Harrison was quiet for several minutes, thinking about what he had learned. Humanity had only developed faster than light travel 5 years ago. They had built a decent space fleet, but it was designed more for exploration than major wars. Getting involved in an alien conflict could be extremely dangerous. But the images of burning Valani cities stayed in his mind. Children running from explosions. Families being separated as soldiers took them away. It looked too much like the worst parts of human history. "Sir," Peterson said softly, "there's one more thing." The end of the message. He played the final part of the alien transmission. Even without understanding the words, Harrison could hear the desperation in the speaker's voice. The translation is, "We know we are asking strangers to die for people they have never met. But if there is any honor left in this galaxy, if there are still people who fight for what is right instead of what is easy, please help us. We are running out of time." The room was silent after Peterson finished speaking. Lisa stared at her instruments, while the military analysts looked uncomfortable. Everyone understood what the message meant. The Valani were going to die unless someone helped them, and they were asking humanity to risk everything for strangers. Harrison made his decision. "Lisa, send a message to Fleet Command. Tell them, I'm requesting an emergency meeting with Admiral Torres and the Joint Chiefs. We need to discuss a combat deployment." "Yes, sir," Lisa said, already working on her console dock as Harrison prepared to leave the station. He looked one more time at the images of the Valani world. Somewhere out there, people were fighting for their lives against an enemy they couldn't defeat alone. They had reached across the darkness of space to ask for help from a species they had never met. Harrison had spent his entire career protecting Earth and its colonies. Now he was thinking about protecting people he had never seen, on a world he had never visited. It felt right, even if it was dangerous. The message from the Valani had changed everything. Humanity was about to face its first real test as a member of the galactic community. Admiral Jake Harrison walked into the emergency meeting room at Fleet Command headquarters. The room was filled with the most important military leaders on Earth. Fleet Admiral Helen Torres sat at the head of the table, her face serious as she reviewed the Valani transmission data. General Kyle Murphy from the Marine Corps was studying tactical reports, while several other commanders looked at star charts showing the route to the Lani system. "Gentlemen, ladies," Torres began, "we all know why we're here. Admiral Harrison has recommended military intervention in an alien conflict. This would be humanity's first major combat operation outside our solar system." Harrison stood up and activated the wall display, showing the images from the Valani distress call. The room fell silent as they watched the destruction happening on the alien world. "The situation is clear," Harrison said. "A peaceful species is being destroyed by an aggressive empire. They've asked for our help, specifically because they believe humans might be strong enough to make a difference." General Murphy leaned forward. "Admiral, what do we know about these Krillians? Are they really as dangerous as the Valani claim?" Harrison nodded to Dr. Peterson, who had been invited to brief the military leaders. Peterson stood up nervously and began his presentation. "The Krillian Empire has been expanding for over a century," Peterson explained. "According to the Valani records, they've conquered at least 50 different worlds. They use overwhelming force and don't accept surrender. Any species that resists is either enslaved or eliminated." "What about their military capabilities?" Torres asked. "Their ships are larger than ours, and they have more of them. The Valani counted over 200 vessels in their system. Our entire active fleet has only about 80 ships." The room erupted. In worried murmurs, everyone understood the numbers. Humanity would be badly outnumbered in any direct fight. Colonel Dan Foster from the Marines spoke up. "What advantages do we have?" Peterson smiled slightly. "The Vellani call us Deathworld survivors for a reason. Earth is much more dangerous than most inhabited planets. Higher gravity, more radiation, extreme weather, and aggressive wildlife. This means humans are physically stronger and more adaptable than most species." "That's interesting, but how does it help us in space combat?" Murphy asked. Harrison had been thinking about this question since he first heard the transmission. "Our ships might be smaller, but they're designed by people who grew up fighting to survive. We build things tough, and we don't give up easily. The Krillians have been winning by intimidating weaker species. They've never fought anyone like..." Shh. Torres looked around the table at her commanders. "This is a big decision. If we do this, we're committed to a war that could last years. Are we ready for that?" Harrison stood up again. "Ma'am, I've been thinking about this all night. If we don't help the Vellani, they'll be wiped out within weeks. But it's not just about them. The Krillians will keep expanding. Eventually, they'll reach human space. Do we want to fight them when they're even stronger? Or do we stop them now, while we still have allies?" The debate continued for 2 hours. Some commanders worried about leaving Earth defenseless. Others argued that humanity wasn't ready for a major war. But the images of the burning Vellani cities kept appearing on the screens, reminding everyone. What was at stake? Finally, Torres called for a vote. The decision was unanimous. Humanity would respond to the Vellani distress call. Within 6 hours, the largest military mobilization in human history began. Admiral Harrison was given command of the expedition fleet, with orders to do whatever was necessary to stop the Krillian attack. The fleet that assembled in Earth orbit was impressive by human standards, though small compared to what they would face. 12 heavy battleships formed the core of the force, led by Harrison's flagship, the UES Liberty. The Liberty was one of humanity's newest ships, equipped with advanced weapons and thick armor. Captain Steve Collins commanded a squadron of 30 destroyers. These smaller ships were fast and heavily armed, designed for hit-and-run attacks. Collins was known for his aggressive tactics and quick thinking in battle. The most powerful ship in the fleet was the experimental dreadnought UEC Defiance, commanded by Captain Amy Rodriguez. The Defiance was twice the size of a normal battleship and carried weapons that had never been tested in real combat. Rodriguez had volunteered for the mission specifically because she wanted to test her ship against a worthy enemy. 40 support vessels completed the fleet. These ships carried supplies, repair equipment, and the thousands of Marines who would be needed if the fighting moved to planetary surfaces. Chief Engineer Tony Bennett worked around the clock to load experimental weapons onto the fleet. The most promising were kinetic missiles that could punch through heavy armor, and new shield generators that might protect human ships from alien weapons. Dr. Rachel Kim briefed the fleet commanders on everything humanity knew about alien technology. Unfortunately, that wasn't very much. Humans had only met a few alien traders, and none of them had been willing to share military secrets. "We're going in blind," Kim admitted. "But that might actually help us. The Krillians won't know what to expect from human technology either." Colonel Foster trained his Marines for combat in alien environments. Nobody knew what conditions they might face on Krillian ships or Vellani worlds. The Marines practiced fighting in different gravity levels, toxic atmospheres, and extreme temperatures. "Remember," Foster told his troops, "we're tougher than most aliens think. Use that advantage. Go places they can't go, survive things that would kill them, and keep fighting when they expect us to give up." The departure from Earth was broadcast across the planet. Billions of people watched as humanity's fleet prepared to jump to hyperspace. News reporters called it the most important moment in human history since the first moon landing. On the bridge of the Liberty, Harrison watched Earth shrink away on his screens. He thought about the families watching from the surface, trusting him to bring their sons and daughters home safely. He thought about the Valani people, counting the hours until help arrived or death found them. All ships report ready for hyperspace jump, his navigation officer announced. Harrison took a deep breath. Begin jump sequence. Destination: Valani home system. The stars stretched into lines of light as the human fleet disappeared into hyperspace. Behind them, Earth continued its quiet orbit around the sun. Ahead of them waited the greatest challenge humanity had ever faced. The journey to the Valani system would take 3 days. 3 days to prepare for a battle that would determine whether humanity was truly ready to take its place among the stars, or whether they were just another species that would fall before the Krillian Empire as the fleet traveled through the strange realm of hyperspace. Harrison reviewed the battle plans one more time. Tomorrow, they would find out if human courage and determination were enough to stop an empire that had been conquering worlds for a century. The human fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Valani system. Admiral Harrison stood on the bridge of the UES Liberty, staring at the tactical display in shock. The situation was even worse than they had expected. "Sir, sensors are detecting massive enemy presence," reported Lieutenant Commander Sarah Blake from her station, counting 237 Krillian vessels surrounding the planet. Harrison felt his stomach drop. The enemy fleet was 3 times larger than his own force. Worse, the Krillian ships were enormous. Even their smallest cruisers were bigger than human battleships. "Captain Wright, what's your scout ship seeing out there?" Harrison asked over the communication system. Captain Nicole Wright's voice came through with static. Her reconnaissance ship UES Scout was moving carefully through the outer asteroid belt, trying to get closer without being detected. "Admiral, it's bad," Wright reported. "I'm seeing continuous bombardment of the planet's surface. Multiple cities are completely destroyed. There are also large transport ships moving away from the planet every few hours." "Slave ships," Dr. Peterson said grimly from his position at the communications console. "They're taking prisoners back to Krillian territory." Harrison studied the enemy formation. The Krillian ships were arranged in a perfect blockade around the Valani homeworld. Nothing could get in or out without going through their lines. It was a classic siege tactic designed to slowly crush any resistance. "Open a channel to the Krillian fleet," Harrison ordered. "Let's see if we can end this without a fight." Peterson worked his controls for several minutes before establishing contact. The main screen flickered and showed the bridge of a massive enemy ship. The creature that appeared was unlike anything humans had seen before. The Krillian commander was tall and thin, with dark gray skin and forearms. His eyes were completely black, and when he spoke, his voice sounded like metal scraping against stone. Behind him, other Krillians worked at control stations, all wearing dark uniforms covered in sharp spikes. "I am War Admiral Zektar of the Krillian 7th Conquest Fleet," the alien said in perfect English. "You will identify yourselves and explain why you dare to enter this system." Harrison stepped forward, trying to project confidence he didn't. "Feel, I am Admiral Harrison of the Human Defense Fleet. We received a distress call from the Valani people. We demand that you cease your attack and withdraw your forces immediately." Zektar made a sound that might have been laughter. "Humans. Yes, we have heard of your primitive species. You have been space traveling for what, 5 of your years? The Krillian Empire has been conquering worlds since before your ancestors learned to make fire. The age of our civilization doesn't matter," Harrison replied. "What matters is that you're attacking innocent people. Leave this system now, or we'll force you to leave." This time Zektar definitely laughed. You have 80 ships. I have nearly 250. Your largest vessel would barely qualify as an escort ship in my fleet. Are you seriously threatening me? We don't make threats, Harrison said calmly. We make promises. Stop your attack on the Vellani or face the consequences. Zektar's expression changed from amusement to anger. Very well, Deathworld primitives. You want to die for strangers? That is your choice. When I am finished with you, I will add your homeworld to our list of conquests. The Krillian Empire will enjoy having human slaves. The communication ended abruptly. Harrison turned to his crew, who were all staring at him with worried expressions. Well, that went about as expected, Harrison said. All ships prepare for combat. We're going to show these bullies what humans can do. The first attack came within minutes. 6 Krillian patrol cruisers moved toward the human fleet, probably expecting to scatter them with a show of force. Captain Collins, commanding. The destroyer squadron asked for permission to engage. Granted, Harrison replied. Show them what our destroyers can do. Collins led 12 destroyers in a coordinated attack on the approaching Krillian ships. The enemy vessels were much larger, but the human ships were faster and more maneuverable. Collins used a tactic called wolf pack fighting, where multiple small ships attacked a single large target from different directions. Lieutenant Commander Greg Turner's destroyer, UES Ranger, scored the first hit, launching a spread of kinetic missiles that punched through the leading Krillian ship's shields. The alien vessel exploded in a brilliant flash, sending debris spinning through space. Direct hit, Turner reported excitedly. Their shields can't stop our kinetic weapons. The other destroyers pressed their attack, using their speed to avoid the Krillians' heavy weapons, while hitting them with missiles and energy beams. Within 20 minutes, all 6 enemy ships were destroyed or disabled. But Harrison knew this was just the beginning. The main Krillian fleet was already moving to intercept them, and Zektar would not underestimate human capabilities again. Captain Wright, status report on the planet, Harrison ordered. Wright's scout ship had managed to get much closer to the Vellani homeworld. Her report was heartbreaking. Sir, I'm detecting massive refugee camps on the northern continent. Looks like millions of survivors hiding in mountain caves. The Krillians are hunting them with ground forces. Any sign of organized resistance? Harrison asked. Some. The Vellani are fighting back with whatever weapons they have, but they're no match for Krillian technology. I estimate they have maybe weeks left before complete collapse. Harrison made a difficult decision. Captain Wright, take your ship down to the planet. Find the Vellani resistance leaders and let them know help has arrived. We need intelligence about Krillian ground forces. Yes, sir, Wright replied. But what about the main fleet? You're going to be outnumbered 5-1. Harrison looked at the tactical display showing the approaching enemy armada. Hundreds of dark ships were moving toward his small human fleet like a storm cloud covering the sun. We'll manage, Harrison said. Just get those people the help they need. As Wright's ship raced toward the planet, the main Krillian fleet arranged itself for battle. Zektar's flagship, a massive dreadnought 3 times the size of any human ship, took position at the center of the formation. Harrison opened a fleet-wide communication channel. All ships. This is Admiral Harrison. I know the odds look bad, but remember why we're here. There are millions of innocent people counting on us. The Krillians think they can intimidate us with their big ships and superior numbers. They're about to learn that humans don't scare easily. Captain Rodriguez's voice came from the experimental dreadnought Defiance. Admiral, my ship is ready to test our new weapons against their flagship. Not yet, Captain, Harrison replied. We need to be smart about this. The Krillians have been winning through brute force for centuries. They're not expecting tactical innovation. Colonel Foster's Marines had managed to board and capture a damaged Krillian patrol ship during the first battle. His report provided valuable intelligence about enemy technology and tactics. "Sir, these aliens rely heavily on automated systems," Foster reported. "Their ships are powerful but inflexible. They don't adapt well to unexpected situations." Harrison smiled for the first time since arriving in the system. Humans had always been good at creating unexpected situations. The massive Krillian fleet was now within weapons range. Zektar's voice echoed across all communication frequencies, broadcasting to both the human fleet and the Valani survivors on the planet below. "Witness the power of the Krillian Empire," the War Admiral announced. "These humans thought they could challenge us. Now watch as we destroy them completely, just as we will destroy any species that dares to resist our expansion." Harrison looked around his bridge at the determined faces of his crew. They were scared, but they were ready to fight. "All ships," Harrison commanded, "engage the enemy. Let's show the galaxy what humanity is made of." The human fleet retreated to the outer asteroid belt after the first battle. Admiral Harrison knew they needed a new plan. Fighting the Krillians directly would be suicide with such bad odds. But humans had always been good at finding creative solutions to impossible problems. Captain Amy Rodriguez floated over to Harrison's command chair in the zero gravity of the asteroid field. Her experimental ship, Defiance, was hidden behind a massive rock, along with the rest of the human fleet. "Admiral, I have an idea," Rodriguez said quietly. "What if we use the asteroids themselves as weapons?" Harrison looked at her with interest. "Explain." "My engineering team has been studying these rocks. Some of them are pure iron and nickel, weighing millions of tons. If we could accelerate them to high speed and aim them at the Krillian fleet, they would hit like giant bullets." Commander Pete Johnson, the fleet's chief engineer, overheard the conversation and joined them. "Captain Rodriguez is right, sir. We have the technology to do it. Our mining ships carry fusion charges for breaking up asteroids. We could use those to push the rocks toward the enemy." Harrison studied the tactical display showing the asteroid field. There were thousands of rocks floating around them, some as big as city blocks. The Krillians probably saw the asteroids as just space debris, not potential weapons. "How long would it take to set up?" Harrison asked. 6 hours to place the charges and calculate the trajectories," Johnson replied. "But we'd need to get the Krillians to come to us. They're staying in formation around the planet." Colonel Dan Foster had been listening from his position near the communications console. "Admiral, I might have a solution for that too. My Marines captured some interesting equipment from that Krillian patrol ship." Foster showed them a small device that looked like a metal box with blinking lights. "This is their communication system. Dr. Peterson thinks he can hack into it and send false messages to their fleet." Dr. Peterson nodded excitedly. "The Krillian language follows mathematical patterns. I can create fake distress calls that will make them think we're trying to escape through the asteroid field." Harrison was beginning to see the full plan. "So, we lure them into the asteroids, then hit them with rocks, moving at incredible speed. They'll be trapped in a confined space where their superior numbers won't help them." "Exactly," Rodriguez said. "And while they're dealing with the asteroid bombardment, we can attack with our ships from multiple directions. Classic Deathworld tactics. Use the environment against your enemy." The plan required perfect timing and coordination. Johnson's engineering teams spread out through the asteroid field, placing fusion charges on the largest rocks and aiming them toward the routes the Krillians would have to take. Meanwhile, Peterson worked on creating convincing fake transmissions. Major Kelly Brooks led a team of Special Forces soldiers on a dangerous mission to plant additional charges on asteroids closer to the Krillian fleet. Brooks and her team used small stealth ships to avoid detection while they worked. "This is insane," Sergeant Lisa Parker whispered as she attached explosives to a spinning asteroid. "We're basically turning rocks into guided missiles." "That's what makes us human," Brooks replied with a grin. "We look at a pile of rocks and see artillery." The Vellani survivors on the planet were also helping with the plan. Captain Wright had made contact with their resistance leaders, who provided detailed maps of Krillian patrol routes and defensive positions. The Vellani leader, an elderly female named Council Speaker Thenna, was amazed by human determination. "Your people are truly from a death world," she told Wright. "Only survivors of such a harsh place would think to weaponize an entire asteroid field." Wright smiled at the compliment. "Ma'am, on Earth we have a saying, if you can't go through the problem, go around it. If you can't go around it, go over it. If you can't go over it, blow it up." Dr. Rachel Kim worked with Vellani scientists to understand more about Krillian technology. The information they shared was invaluable for planning the attack. "The Krillians have powerful shields," Dr. Kim explained to the fleet commanders, "but they're designed to stop energy weapons and missiles. They've never had to deal with multi-ton rocks moving at high speed." "What about their armor?" Harrison asked. "Strong but brittle. It can absorb a lot of damage from small hits, but a single massive impact will shatter it completely." As the human teams finished their preparations, Peterson sent the fake distress signals to the Krillian fleet. The messages claimed that the human ships were damaged and trying to escape through the asteroid field. War Admiral Zektar took the bait exactly as hoped. Intercepted communications showed him dividing his fleet into 3 groups to surround. The asteroid field can trap the humans inside. "Foolish Deathworlders," Zektar broadcast to his subordinates. "They think they can hide among the rocks like primitive animals. We will crush them like insects." The first Krillian ships entered the asteroid field 2 hours later. They moved in tight formation, confident that their superior firepower would make short work of the human fleet. Harrison watched from his command center as enemy vessels moved into position. "All teams, stand by. Remember, we only get one chance." At this, Commander Johnson had positioned himself on a mining ship near the largest cluster of weaponized asteroids. "Charges are ready, sir. Just give the word." Major Brooks and her Special Forces teams were hiding on smaller asteroids throughout the field, ready to trigger additional bombardments if needed. The Krillian fleet was now deep inside the asteroid field, exactly where the humans wanted them. Zektar's flagship led the main group, while 2 smaller formations moved to block the escape routes. "Now," Harrison commanded. Johnson triggered the fusion charges simultaneously. Dozens of massive asteroids suddenly accelerated toward the Krillian ships, moving like enormous bullets through space. The first impacts were devastating. A chunk of iron the size of a skyscraper smashed into a Krillian cruiser, completely destroying it in a spray of metal and fire. Another asteroid punched through the shields of 3 ships in a row, before exploding against a 4th. The Krillian formation collapsed into chaos as captains tried to avoid the incoming rocks while maintaining their attack patterns. Ships collided with each other as they attempted emergency maneuvers in the confined space. "Direct hits on 17 enemy vessels," reported Lieutenant Commander Blake. "Multiple secondary explosions. Their formation is breaking apart." But the humans weren't finished. As the Krillians struggled to deal with the asteroid bombardment, Captain Collins led his destroyer squadron in a flanking attack from above the asteroid field. The destroyers dove down through the rocks like hunters, attacking a herd of confused animals. Their smaller size allowed them to navigate safely through spaces that would crush the larger Krillian ships. "Wolf pack formation," Collins ordered his captains. "Hit them while they're distracted." Lieutenant Commander Turner's destroyer ranger led the charge, firing kinetic missiles at point-blank range into a Krillian battleship's engines. The enemy ship lost power and began drifting helplessly among the asteroids. Meanwhile, Major Brooks triggered the second wave of charges, sending more rocks toward the enemy rear guard. The Krillians found themselves trapped between the human ships above and the weaponized asteroids all around them. War Admiral Zektar's angry voice filled the communication channels. All ships withdraw from the asteroid field immediately. Regroup at minimum safe distance. But it was too late. The human trap had worked perfectly. Nearly 40 Krillian ships were destroyed or disabled, while the human fleet had lost only 2 destroyers. As the surviving enemy vessels limped back toward the planet, Harrison allowed himself a moment of satisfaction. The supposedly primitive humans had just handed the mighty Krillian Empire its first major defeat in decades. Phase 1 complete, Harrison announced to his fleet. Now we prepare for Phase 2. It's time to take this fight directly to their main force. Admiral Harrison knew the asteroid attack had only bought them time. War Admiral Zektar still had over 200 ships surrounding the Valani homeworld. The humans needed to strike before the Krillians could reorganize and call for reinforcements. All ships prepare for final assault, Harrison announced across the fleet communication system. This is our chance to end this war before it gets worse. Captain Rodriguez brought the massive dreadnought Defiance alongside Harrison's flagship. Her ship was humanity's most powerful weapon, but it had never been tested in real combat against an enemy like the Krillians. "Admiral, my crew is ready," Rodriguez reported. "Our new plasma cannons should be able to punch through their heaviest armor." "Good. You'll target their flagship directly. If we can take out Zektar, their whole command structure might collapse." Major Brooks had returned from her successful sabotage mission with valuable intelligence. "Sir, the Krillians use a very rigid command system. Lower-ranking officers never make decisions without orders from above. If we can create confusion in their leadership, they won't know how to respond." Dr. Peterson had been monitoring enemy communications throughout the battle. "The Major is right, Admiral. I'm hearing panic in their transmissions. They're not used to losing battles, and they don't know how to handle unexpected tactics." Colonel Foster's Marines had prepared for their most dangerous mission yet. While the fleet engaged the Krillian ships, Foster would lead boarding parties to capture key enemy vessels and rescue Valani prisoners. "My teams are ready for ship-to-ship combat," Foster reported. "We've studied the captured Krillian vessel and found weaknesses in their internal defenses." The plan was complex, but necessary. The human fleet would attack in 3 waves, each designed to exploit different Krillian weaknesses. First, Captain Collins would lead his destroyers in hit-and-run attacks around the edges of the enemy formation. This would force the Krillians to spread their forces and create gaps in their defensive lines. Second, Rodriguez would bring the Defiance straight through the center of their formation, targeting their command ships with humanity's most powerful weapons. Finally, the remaining battleships would follow up with concentrated attacks on whatever enemy forces survived the first 2 waves. The assault began at dawn on the Valani homeworld. Collins led 12 destroyers in a high-speed approach from the dark side of the planet, using the world itself as cover until the last moment. "Remember, speed and surprise," Collins told his captains. "Hit them hard and get out before they can respond." The destroyers emerged from behind the planet, moving at maximum velocity. They fired everything they had at the outer ring of Krillian ships before the enemy could react. Lieutenant Commander Turner's ship Ranger destroyed 2 enemy cruisers with a perfectly timed missile attack. The other destroyers followed his example, crippling several more Krillian vessels before racing away into open space. The Krillian fleet began turning to pursue the destroyers, exactly as Harrison had hoped. This created the opening that Rodriguez needed for her attack run. Defiance, "You are clear for approach," Harrison transmitted. "Take us right down their throats." Rodriguez's massive dreadnought accelerated toward the center of the Krillian formation. Enemy ships fired everything they had at the approaching human vessel, but the Defiance's experimental shields held against the bombardment. "Target, their flagship," Rodriguez ordered her weapons officer. "All plasma cannons, maximum power." The Defiance's main guns fired simultaneously, sending streams of superheated plasma directly at Zektar Z command ship. The beams cut through the Krillian flagship's shields like they were made of paper. Zektar's ship staggered under the assault, its hull glowing red-hot where the plasma beams struck. But the massive alien vessel was tougher than expected and remained functional. "Direct hit, but no kill," Rodriguez's weapons officer reported. "Their armor is incredibly thick." "Then we'll hit them again," Rodriguez replied grimly. "Bring us around for another pass." While the Defiance engaged the flagship, Colonel Foster's Marines launched their boarding assault. Using small, fast transport ships, they approached several damaged Krillian vessels that were drifting helplessly after the asteroid attack. "Remember, these aliens are physically weaker than us," Foster told his troops as they prepared to breach the enemy hulls. "But they'll fight desperately because they know we don't take prisoners who harm civilians." Sergeant Parker led the first boarding team onto a crippled Krillian cruiser. The ship's interior was dark and filled with toxic gases that would have killed most alien species, but the Marines' environmental suits protected them. "Contact," Parker shouted as Krillian soldiers appeared in the corridor ahead. The enemy warriors were tall and thin, but they moved quickly and carried advanced energy. Weapons. The battle inside the ship was brutal but brief. Human Marines were stronger and more resilient than the Krillians expected. Parker's team fought their way to the ship's detention area, where they found hundreds of Velani prisoners. "Transport ships inbound," Foster reported to the fleet. "We're evacuating civilians from 3 enemy vessels." The rescue operation revealed something important about Krillian psychology. When their prisoners were taken away, many enemy soldiers seemed to lose the will to fight. Dr. Peterson, monitoring their communications, realized why. "Admiral, the Krillians measure success by how many slaves they capture," Peterson explained. "Losing prisoners is considered a terrible failure in their culture." Harrison immediately saw how to use this information. "All ships target their slave transports. If we can free their prisoners, it will demoralize their entire fleet." Captain Wright, who had been providing close support to the planet's surface, redirected her efforts to hunting down Krillian transport ships. Her fast scout vessel caught 3 slave ships trying to escape the system and forced them to surrender. The tide of battle was turning, but Zektar was not finished. The War Admiral's flagship, though damaged, was still dangerous. He began broadcasting surrender demands to the human fleet. "Deathworld primitives," Zektar's voice echoed across all frequencies. "You have caused enough destruction. Withdraw now, and I will allow your species to live as our slaves instead of destroying your homeworld." Harrison's response was immediate and clear. "War Admiral, the only one who will be surrendering today is you. Your empire's days of conquest are over." Rodriguez brought the Defiance around for its final attack run on the Krillian flagship. This time, she aimed for the ship's engine section, hoping to disable it completely. All weapons concentrated fire on their reactor core. Rodriguez commanded the plasma beams struck home, just as Zektar's ship tried to turn away. The Krillian flagship's engines exploded in a chain reaction that tore through half the vessel. But Zektar had one last desperate plan. As his ship died around him, he set course directly for the Velani homeworld. "If I cannot win," the War Admiral broadcast, "then everyone dies with me." The massive Krillian flagship, its engines overloading and its hull breaking apart, began. falling toward the planet below. If it struck the surface, the impact would kill millions of Valani civilians in a larger city. Captain Wright, monitoring the situation from her scout ship, realized what was happening. Without hesitation, she changed course to intercept the falling enemy vessel. "This is right," she transmitted to the fleet. "I'm going to ram their flagship and push it off course." "Nicole, no!" Harrison shouted. "Your ship isn't big enough. The impact will destroy you." Wright's voice was calm and determined. "Admiral, there are 8 million people in that city. I took an oath to protect the innocent. This is my choice." Her small scout ship accelerated toward the enormous Krillian flagship, which was now glowing like a falling star as it entered the planet's atmosphere. Wright calculated the angle perfectly, striking the enemy vessel just hard enough to push it away from the populated areas. Both ships exploded in the upper atmosphere, creating a brilliant flash that could be seen across the entire planet. Wright's sacrifice had saved millions of lives, but the cost was devastating for the human fleet. With their flagship destroyed and their war admiral dead, the remaining Krillian forces finally began to surrender. Some tried to flee the system, but most simply stopped fighting and waited for the humans to take them prisoner. Admiral Harrison stood on his bridge, watching the enemy ships lower their weapons. The battle was won, but victory felt hollow after losing Captain Wright and her crew. "Sir," Lieutenant Commander Blake reported quietly, "the Krillian fleet is requesting surrender terms." Harrison nodded slowly. "Tell them we accept their surrender. All prisoners will be treated according to human military law. And send a message to the Valani government. Their world is free." The silence after the battle was strange and peaceful. For the first time in months, no weapons fired in the Valani system. The dark Krillian ships that had terrorized the planet now floated quietly, their crews waiting for human soldiers to board them. Admiral Harrison stood in the main hangar of his flagship, watching as Krillian prisoners were brought aboard. The alien warriors looked defeated and confused. They had never surrendered before, and they didn't know what to expect from their captors. "Sir, final casualty reports," Lieutenant Commander Blake said, handing him a tablet. The numbers were better than Harrison had feared. The human fleet had lost 4 ships and 300 crew members. It was a heavy price, but much less than anyone had expected when facing such overwhelming odds. Colonel Foster approached with a group of rescued Valani civilians. The aliens were small and peaceful looking, with large eyes and pale blue skin. Many were injured, but they were alive and free. "Admiral," Foster said, "I'd like you to meet Council Speaker Thenna. She's been leading the resistance on the planet." The elderly Valani female stepped forward and bowed deeply. When she spoke, her voice was musical but filled with emotion. "Admiral Harrison, there are no words in any language to express our gratitude. You came across the galaxy to help people you had never met. Your Captain Wright gave her life to save our children. We will never forget this sacrifice." Harrison felt uncomfortable with the praise. "Speaker Thenna, we did what anyone should do when innocent people are in danger. I'm just sorry we couldn't save everyone." Dr. Peterson had been working with Valani scholars to translate messages from across the galaxy. What they discovered was remarkable and concerning at the same time. "Admiral, you need to see this," Peterson said, showing him a collection of alien transmissions. "Word of our victory is spreading faster than light. Dozens of species are sending us messages." The messages came from worlds throughout the galaxy. Some were congratulations from species that had heard about the battle. Others were desperate pleas for help from worlds still under Krillian control. "Look at this one." Peterson pointed to a particularly urgent message. "It's from the Zephyrian Republic. They say 3 Krillian fleets are heading toward their territory, and they're asking if humans can help them too." Harrison realized that winning one battle had created a much bigger problem. If humanity started responding to every cry for help, they would be at war across the entire galaxy. Captain Rodriguez joined the discussion, her uniform still dirty from the battle. Admiral, we're getting reports from our intelligence teams. The Krillian Empire is in chaos. Some of their subject worlds are starting to rebel, and their military commanders are fighting each other for control. That's good news, isn't it? Harrison asked. Maybe, Rodriguez replied. But it also means there are a lot of angry Krillian. Fleets out there looking for revenge. They might decide to attack Earth directly. The implications were staggering. Humanity had wanted to save one species from destruction, but they might have started a galactic war in the process. Major Brooks brought news from the boarding teams that made the situation even more complicated. Sir, we've been questioning the Krillian prisoners. According to them, their empire controls over 300 star systems. Most of those worlds were conquered recently, and the populations are still resentful. What you're telling me, Harrison said slowly, is that we've just kicked over an anthill that stretches across half the galaxy. That's one way to put it, sir, Brooks agreed. But there was also good news. The Vialinae had shared their advanced medical technology with human doctors, and Dr. Rachel Kim had been studying captured Krillian equipment. The knowledge gained from this single battle had advanced human technology by decades. We've learned more about space combat in 1 week than we had in 5 years of peaceful exploration, Kim reported to the fleet commanders. The Krillian weapons are actually less advanced than ours in some ways. They rely on size and numbers instead of innovation. Commander Johnson had been analyzing the enemy ships and found something interesting. Admiral, these Krillian vessels are all built to the same basic design. They don't adapt their technology for different situations. That's probably why our unconventional tactics worked so well. The real surprise came when Fleet Admiral Torres arrived from Earth with reinforcements. Her fleet was twice the size of Harrison's original force, and it carried news that changed everything. Admiral Harrison, Torres said during their first meeting, congratulations on a brilliant victory. But you should know that Earth has been receiving diplomatic messages from across the galaxy. She showed him recordings of alien ambassadors requesting meetings with humanity. Some wanted to form alliances. Others wanted to trade technology, and a few were clearly trying to determine if humans posed a threat to their own empires. The Galactic Assembly wants to meet with our leaders, Torres continued. They're the closest thing to a central government that exists out here. Apparently, no new species has defeated the Krillians in over 50 years. Dr. Peterson was excited by this development. This is incredible, Admiral. We're being invited to join the galactic community as equals, not as junior members. But Harrison was more cautious. What do they want in return? Torres smiled grimly. That's the interesting part. They want us to keep doing exactly what we're doing. Several major powers are forming a coalition to contain Krillian expansion, and they want humanity to lead the military effort. Why us? Harrison asked. Because we're the only species that has proven we can beat them, Torres replied. And because we're the only ones who fight for principles instead of profit. The weeks that followed the battle were busy with diplomacy and reconstruction. Human engineers worked alongside Vellani technicians to rebuild the damaged cities. Marine units trained local defense forces to protect against future attacks. Colonel Foster established a permanent base on the Vellani homeworld, both to provide security and to serve as a training center for other species who wanted to learn human military tactics. It's strange, Foster told Harrison during one of his visits to the planet. 6 months ago, most of these aliens had never heard of humans. Now they're studying our combat manuals and asking us to teach them how to fight. The most significant change was in how humanity saw itself. Before the Vellani crisis, humans had been cautious explorers, afraid of getting involved in galactic politics. Now they were seen as protectors and leaders. Captain Collins, who had survived the battle with his destroyer squadron intact, summed up the new reality during a fleet meeting. "We came here to save one world," Collins said, "but we ended up changing the entire galaxy. The question is, are we ready for what comes next?" Harrison looked out the viewport at the peaceful Velani homeworld, where children were playing in rebuilt parks and families were reuniting after months of separation. In the May distance, human and Velani ships patrolled together, keeping watch for any remaining threats. "I don't know if we're ready," Harrison admitted, "but I know we don't have a choice. Too many people are counting on us now." As if to prove his point, another distress signal arrived from a distant star system. This time it came from the Andromedian Collective, reporting that Krillian refugees' fleets were attacking their outer colonies. Harrison authorized the deployment of Captain Rodriguez and the Defiance to investigate. As he watched the powerful ship jump to hyperspace, he realized that humanity's role as galactic protectors was just beginning. The war against the Krillian Empire would continue, but now humanity had allies and experience. More importantly, they had proven to themselves and the galaxy that sometimes the right thing to do was also the smart thing to do. Standing on the bridge of his flagship, surrounded by the vastness of space, Admiral Harrison felt the weight of responsibility that came with being humanity's representative to the stars. It was a burden he was proud to carry.